Carrie, I don't know how well you know Afra's story, but for the purpose of the listeners and for the purpose of setting up the conversation, I'll tell you anyway. But
Thank you.
15 years ago, I got a missed call from my old man, and I got a voicemail from him, and the voicemail said, "Hey, Matt, I just want to let you know that I love you." And I tried calling him back. I couldn't get through. I sent him a message, and a couple of days later, I would find out that he took his life. And I don't know whether it was about this conversation that we're going to have today but it was the first time I really thought about it, that I wish he didn't call me. I wish he called Lifeline because, I mean, yeah, if somebody answered, it could have changed the trajectory of his life.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. Wow, that's very, very powerful and moving. And wow, I've got more questions for you, I think, than you have for me right now.
Oh, shoot.
But yeah, thank you for sharing that. I can't imagine. I mean, certainly no one really is immune when it comes to mental health, and many of us have lost loved ones to suicide. Many more people attempt suicide, we know, every year. And it affects hundreds of people every time it happens. The grief and loss is accompanied by so much confusion and questioning and stigma. So that just compounds what you would have, as a son, already been trying to grapple with. So I can't imagine the strength you hold right now, but also, I guess, the strength in telling that story. That's incredible because as someone who's gone through it, what you're choosing to do with your life is incredibly substantive and making a big difference. Wow.
I appreciate it.
That's why the doc got behind you, mate. When you started telling me your story after we started getting to know each other, I was like, shit, this bloke's having a go trying to make something out of really sad. And that's why the doc got behind you, mate, was exactly that.
Yeah, I appreciate it. But I want to focus on what the conversation he could have had would have been like, because I think one thing we've learnt from this podcast, Lily, who was speaking about eating disorder, she said she used Lifeline and, it helped change the trajectory of her life. And I know that she got a message about her podcast saying, "Thank you for talking about eating disorder. This is the first time I wanted to get better." And that's the type of effect this podcast can have. And I know that odds are there's somebody listening to this who maybe for whatever reason doesn't think that they can call Lifeline. They don't see the option. I remember actually I went to the Lifeline Gala a couple of years ago, and Josh Illusions, he spoke, and he said he was ready to take his life, but he got a text from his mate that just said, "Hey mate, just checking in on you. I love you," or something like that. And it just shook him out of that mindset just for a moment, and then he made the decision to call Lifeline. But people get the blinkers on and they can't go anywhere else. That's just the position they're in. When they do go to Lifeline, and they should if they think about it, what are they met with after those rings?
Yeah.
Someone answers, and what are they doing?
You'll hear the words, "Hello, this is Lifeline. May we help you?" And thank you for having me on today, because I think the important thing is addressing that concern that Lifeline is or isn't for them. So many people, I started on the phones a little under 2 decades ago. So many more people ring up and apologize and say, "Am I holding up the line?
Am I worth it? Like, yeah.
Yeah, I'm really sorry. I shouldn't be calling." Lifeline is for everyone. It's for every single individual, any age, any gender, any time of day or night, any conceivable human crisis. So what you are met with is a warm and caring and compassionate individual. They've got a highly clinical model. It is international best practice, but they enrobe it in compassion, and they will help you through. They will sit and listen and help you understand. They will connect and enable coping in a way that essentially allows you to decide your next steps. The types of calls that come through, I've sort of over the years sort of categorized them into 3 main areas, understanding I've never had 2 calls that are the same. So it's quite hard to sort of generalize, but you've got your mental health or mental illness. themed calls where individuals could be having a negative reaction to medications. They could be struggling with anxiety or depression. They could be coming to terms with the diagnosis. And then you use very different skills in that call. You've got your crisis calls, which is everything you see from financial distress to relationship breakdowns to gambling or alcohol, substance abuse or misuse, to isolation and bullying, domestic violence. And you're sitting with individuals to ensure that they are, first of all, safe, and then they've got access to and the ability to do the work to contact the right sort of help. So we can help anyone anywhere in Australia at any time within walking distance, a free bus ride, or if they have paid transport or transport of their own, something they can get to at that hour to help them. And of course, we've got safety or imminent risk calls, which is where there's a real risk of loss of life. And that can be a child experiencing domestic violence, anyone in a domestic violence situation, obviously anyone having suicidal ideation, anyone at risk really. And that's where we work very closely with our emergency services and 000. And I think to talk about suicide and what you're referring to there, how an individual gets to that point, and we've had the privilege of meeting and working with hundreds of individuals who have called Lifeline, but also those who have attempted suicide and survived. And we've been able to learn from them. And what tends to happen, and I know from being on the other side of the call, the person when they call you, if they find the courage, they find the courage, but they can't find a reason to live. They can only see reasons for dying.
Mm.
And when someone does pick up the phone to Lifeline and you are answering that call, it's something as a crisis supporter, you are filled with hope because you know that there is a reason to live. And that reason is what caused them to pick up the phone in the first place. And sometimes that's all you've got to hold on to.
They're trying.
Yeah.
They couldn't see it, but they could feel it. That's why they called.
Yes.
And that's the responder's job, is to try and help them uncover that, connect with that purpose.
Absolutely. You grab onto that with both hands, even if you can't name it, and you try and breathe as much life into that as possible.
How do you do that in the conversation? Like as a part of
There's a lot of validation, an individual and staying in we talk about sitting in the mud. It's just allowing them to say the things they need to say. And it's a safe space. There's no judgment. Allowing them to talk about all of the reasons why they can't see a future. And for a lot of them, it's about having the pain, whether it's psychological or physical, having the pain end. And it's about letting them have that space to talk about it and validating that for them and bringing them around to the point where you can have a conversation around how you might be able to keep them safe, sometimes just for a minute, sometimes just for an hour or two, sometimes just till the next day. And you're trying to enable connection. We try and contract them to safety. But of course, if there is a plan in place and there is an imminent risk to them, we will absolutely contact our emergency services and we'll stay with them the whole time. We have a chain of command at Lifeline that allows the crisis supporter to stay with the caller, and we are downloading and transferring information, sometimes quite manually, to emergency services to get them there. And sometimes if we can't extract an address or a location, we have ways of finding them.
It sounds like half of the value, well, not half, it's just a throwaway proportion, but a value they can get it from calling is just getting that noise outside of their head, and so they can hear it, not rattling around, and just, validate it. This is where I'm at. This is what I'm feeling. And then somebody else going, that's okay.
Absolutely. And the tough part is so often the crisis supporter doesn't know what happens at the end of the call. Sometimes you're there, and I have been there when emergency services have intervened and they've taken over the phone, and you know that there's a very good chance. Sometimes you don't have that. And that's where the training comes in. So the individuals, often, again, a question we have is around volunteering. I don't know if I can do it. I don't know if I can answer the phones. I don't know what I would do. The training is incredible. You go through extensive training. It takes a year to become accredited, and you are ready to take your calls. You are ready to take those calls. You know about the support that's in place for you when you're on the phones, And so many of our crisis supporters report getting so much out of being there, just knowing they were there. It certainly gives you a lot more than it takes away. But I guess that's the magic of Lifeline, is that network of connection.
But taking away, like, it must be like a really hard thing to go through these conversations with people. What are some of the things you guys do for your volunteers to help them process like some pretty intense conversations?
Yeah, absolutely. So again, it starts with the prevention and the training. I've said it 3 times today already. In fact, we will not harm someone to help someone. So our crisis support volunteers are the lifeblood of our organisation, as are the volunteers at the warehouse who help us with the funding. You need to ensure that they're coming away better than you find them at the start of their shift. So it's around the training. Then once they're accredited, once they're on the phones, they're flying solo, we have all of the professional development, all of the clinical supervision. They do need to sit through what we call group soups, where they sit in groups and they talk about the challenges that they're having. They learn from more senior mentors who have been on the phones for years. And we have our centre supervisors who are just there to make sure that they are well. We brief on before they start their shift. It's a quick conversation, but our centre supervisors can tell whether they should or shouldn't be completing a shift right then and there. They're checking in between difficult calls. They debrief after the call. And then if they've had a tough call on their shift, and a tough call, they're all tough calls, but a particular one that's perhaps triggered them or they've spoken about afterwards, we follow up with them in the days following. The professional development just helps them stay across all of the skills to look after themselves, all of the self-care practices. We bring in organisations like yourself to talk about lived experience to give them more context and more hope. And so all of that sort of wraps around them to keep them safe.
We were going to get there eventually, but it's great that you've brought it up. One of the other things from that Lifeline Gala that stuck out to me was the little video package that you did. I think it was a couple of years ago, but the volunteers, and they were talking. One of them spoke about how she got a call. The person on the other side was on a train on their way to take their life, and spoke to that caller on the train for a long time from memory. I can't put a figure on it. And then the phone call ended with the person saying, "Thank you for listening." And then nothing. You spoke about how sometimes you don't know what happens after the call. And that must be, I mean, you hope that one went well, but it must be such a weight to carry. You talk about being prepared, but your volunteers must be some pretty special people to, like you say, they get stuff out of it. But that.
Yes. And thank you for allowing me to acknowledge them, because there's no amount. They are absolute earth angels. They, our volunteers are students, at the ANU who are doing psychology, perhaps. They could be mums, dads doing a shift after a long day at work. They can be ex-heads of army. The most incredible individuals walk into that phone room and do what they do. And it is incredibly difficult. It's really about understanding. I always say to my team, we have quite a dark sense of humor. We sort of have to, we always go, we're not turning sausages on a Saturday. We know what we signed up for. We see all the devastation. We see all the trauma. We see all the loss. We lose sleep. We are human beings ourselves. We walk around scared, spooked, sometimes traumatized for days. We ourselves will attract a fair bit of abuse with anything that might be related.
Mid-call or something?
Yeah, mid-call. Sometimes through our, the phones on our desks. If Lifeline is showing up anywhere in particular. So it's not easy, but we know what Lifeline's capable of, and we know what it does, and so we know what it achieves. And that's what you hold on to. It's the wolf we feed, is knowing that we're there, knowing that it does make a difference, knowing that we do save lives. We lose, one Canberran a week to suicide. We lose almost 9 Australians a day. But we know that at Lifeline, we often put in place over 110 safety contracts a day. So
what does that mean, like a safety?
A safety contract is essentially an intervention, or it's basically stopping someone in their tracks and just helping them pause if suicide is a very real option for them, or it is something that they are acting on at that time.
So it'd be much more than 9 Aussies a day if Lifeline wasn't there. Be much more.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so you know that being there and the fact that you were there, even though sometimes you don't know the outcome, you know you made a difference. Sometimes, if I've walked away from the phones, you just sometimes have to tell yourself at least they weren't alone. Yeah, it's pretty tough.
You got a bit of emotion coming through when you're saying this.
I cannot imagine a world without Lifeline in it. And it's, yes, we have a work structure and we have salaries, but none of us do it for any other reason other than we want to ensure that everyone has the opportunity to live their best lives, and we want to ensure that we're doing everything to prevent what we believe to be completely preventable, a moment in time, which is a thought of suicide or acting on that thought.
On the Lifeline Gala, the video, like Lifeline Gala video, so you do it every year, do the video every year?
Yes, we try and, in a non-confronting way, I always laugh. I'm great friends with Michelle from the RSPCA. I quite resent her. I said, I don't have cute puppies to just sort of hand around. We've got to try and get our message across. And it's not a pretty message. It's not a fun message. It leaves people feeling deeply affected. But yes, so every year we try and we've had speakers, and sometimes that can get a little bit too difficult for the audience who are unprepared. So we do the video package to try and contain the message and make sure that we're keeping everyone safe.
Because that video this year, it was, I think it said it was reenacting a call, that someone, an actual Lifeline call, and it was at like 2 a.m.
Mm.
And the volunteer talked to, I think it was a widow who was just nothing to live for, but everything we're just saying basically came through in that call. And the old fella, just lost the will to live, but had nothing to live for. But the volunteer did an amazing job. And the call went for the video only went for 10 minutes, but I think it went for like 3. It was a long call. And then it finishes and it's like 4 a.m. And then within like 10 seconds, the phone rings again.
Yes.
Like the never ending, like the never endingness of it. How do you work the team through that, understanding that it's just one tough call after another? Does everyone accept it and they understand that it's just like, it's not like you just, can turn the lights off and shut the door and like the pub, you close it at midnight and you've got 11 hours till it needs to be open again. But like I'm curious to know a bit more how Lifeline manages that 24/7 like demand for your service.
Yeah. It's, first of all, that video, it's incredibly impactful. It is a reenactment. It
was amazing. It was so well done.
It's important to say that Carol, who was the character in that, was ready to take another call. So often with a call of that nature, your centre supervisor is tapping you on the shoulder and either making you a cup of tea or pulling you aside for 5 minutes just to check. But so often, yes, because of the training, because of the mindset, and we trialled actually during COVID taking the call answer service to everyone's homes so that they could work from home. And we stopped that after 1 week because we were not convinced of the safety and security. I know I've taken some tough calls at home, and I still walk into those rooms today and feel that call. So when you walk into the centre, you sort of put that coat of armour on, or your disco ball, or whatever we call it. It's something that will deflect, and you know what you're there to do. You make sure you've got all your protections in place. You do the right thing by yourself and make sure you're ready to take the call. And yes, many of our volunteers can hang up and go from one call to the next. The shifts are structured in such a way that you can do a 2, 3, or 4 hour shift. It is a requirement that you do 96 hours on the phones per year, but that's not so much. It's like anyone. I'm a mum. I took 3 months out of the workplace when I had my bubs. Confidence. You lose confidence very quickly. So keeping up your fortnightly shifts just keeps you really confident you're in it. So there's a number of strategies and a number of structural requirements that allow those individuals to operate the way, as you say, so incredibly to operate that way.
And then so like on a night shift, how many, just say Lifeline Canberra, just people that don't know, like obviously are you able to share like what's the peak time of the week for calls? How many like, yeah, when do you have the most volleys on? It's obviously 24/7. Can you just shed a bit of the like logistics behind the scenes?
Yeah, it's interesting, the inner workings. Sundays are very busy. And, you can, again, no two calls being the same. You don't ever want to make assumptions. We have captured unidentifiable data to help us with our improvements. So we do know the number 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, reasons that people call. But why they call on certain days, you sort of go, right, it's Sunday. That's because Mondays return to work. So if they've had a break from, a bullying, harassment, burnout situation over the course of the weekend, they've got to face it on the Monday. So Mondays can be family days. So a lot of elderly people feeling isolated, their families are off doing other things. They're on their own. So Sundays are busy, and of course every day after work until 6 a.m. overnight is the busiest. It's the darkest, time of the day, and for some people, many people, they're at work all day. After work, alcohol, other people interactions come into place. A stressful day, so that can all play out during.
Usually they're alone.
Yeah,
Just-
in the evening.
So Sunday night, afternoon, evening usually picked up.
Yeah.
And then what about zooming out over the course of a year? So that's like in a weekly cycle. But what is there any interest, like just trends you guys have noticed?
I hate saying this because it's my happiest time of the year. It always was. And now I have a very real appreciation for the fact that for many more people, Christmas and the holiday season is the toughest time. And I think that's for many reasons. And you can probably relate to this. It's when you start to reflect and you start to imagine, or you're forced to imagine a world without people, or you've lost people, or you're struggling with relationships or financially. It's the time to be merry. It's in your face everywhere you go. I walked here through the shopping centre because we're now based at the centre, and the carols are up and the trees are out, and I love it. But at the same time, I'm reminded that for so many more people, it's a tough time. They feel more isolated because it's stress, family or visiting. Not everyone has the same experience with friends or family. So over the summer period here in Australia, we see the highest rate of suicide.
And it slows down,
Oh,
doesn't
yeah,
it?
hang on.
It's like things catch up with you when things slow down, don't they? So Christmas slows down for people. They don't have distraction at work. They don't have distraction. All their friends might be somewhere else and they're just by themselves.
So it's summer. I thought it sort of would have been winter when everything's dark and cold. In the UK, you hear about those first few Sundays of the new year that people are not wanting to return to work. But I thought a lot of it was maybe the dark and the cold and they're not out being active. But you think it's because there's that time of year where you reflect, and if you've lost those connections, that's when I guess it really hits home because you're not in the busyness of the year. Is that what you're sort of?
That's that the number one reason people call Lifeline is due to relationship breakdown, isolation, financial distress. I mean, think about it. That's Christmas. Everyone's spending. Everyone's on holidays. It's an expensive time of the year. It's in your face that it should be the happiest time of the year, and it's joyful, and it's family, and it's connection. For those people that don't have that, it's amplified.
Yeah, that's fascinating because last year, like running, for instance, in December is pretty busy. Like it was our biggest runs, and we had Mays in December. And then the dock closes for a week or two, and we were like, oh, we'll stop the runs over that break. But then Ellie, love you, Ellie, she's like, no, I'll keep running them. I'm like, all right. And the numbers were like much smaller, but we've had a lot of stories from those runs, the Christmas Day one, the New Year's Day one, of people who much it meant to them because of exactly what you're saying. They've probably been the most impactful runs that have helped people the most, but they were the smallest.
Yep.
Just because, of everything, you're saying.
Yeah, you
it's
don't
really hitting home. I guess, for us, why we should keep putting those on over the holidays.
Yeah, you don't realise.
I didn't realise, no.
I was naively our warehouse where we sort books for the book fairs. That's open 7 days a week, 365 days of the year too. And I thought, let's shut down over Christmas. And I got so much feedback from volunteers who were so, unsettled by that and unhappy about it. And it was only just scratching the surface and realizing that so many of our volunteers, so many of them at the warehouse are retired. Their families don't live in Canberra, or their families leave Canberra for Christmas. It's their community. It's their family. So now we put on Christmas lunch. So it's the opposite, in fact. So it's just learning.
Nice.
Yeah. Yeah, they're a wonderful, it's a family. It is. But that realization of it's not what necessarily you think it is. And I guess that's where stigma comes from,
I want to go back to the calls just quickly because I had a thought that came into my head. I don't know if you've ever been around when a paramedic comes in. And sometimes they walk too slow. You're like, hurry up. Whatever. They're always very calm. It's like they've been through the training. They know what to do. They're there. Like it almost instills you with a sense of confidence that everything's going to be okay. And then the other thing is with the callers. So I imagine that's the same with the people who answer the calls
crisis
at Lifeline.
supporters,
Crisis supporters. But then there's also this added layer of it's volunteer. They're there because it means something to them. And I reckon, one, they're prepared, so they know what to say. But two, I reckon in their voice you can probably hear that even though they don't know the person on the other side of the call, they care. They care about that person. Otherwise, why would you do it?
Absolutely. I stand in the crisis support room when I'm having what I think is a tough day. And I talk about it. I talk about the fact that you can hear one side of a conversation that is changing someone's life out there forever. There's a person that I know in our phone room talking to someone they'll never meet. It's just incredible to think, and it's because they care. It's because humanity exists. It is alive and well. I know there are signs up on every counter saying, abuse will not be tolerated. You walk into Big W and they interrupt your favorite 80s song to say, you'll be arrested if you abuse someone. But at the end of the day, as much as we see the trauma and the pain and the loss, we see that. We see that humanity. We see that strength and that resilience and that determination because they can, people helping someone else. It's a beautiful, beautiful organization.
Can you care too much?
That's a good question. I'll put that on you guys.
Well, boundaries. I mean, I guess that's you obviously must attract the most caring people that want to make a difference. But I think we've had a conversation before, and you told me about some triangle about
a Coppens drama triangle.
Yes. Talk. Yeah, can you explain that? I found that fascinating.
Oh, right. That's a slightly different conversation around workplace culture, and in this sector, how you can essentially see when you've got so much diversity coming in and you've got volunteers and paid staff and different levels of capability, commitment, compatibility, and capacity coming in, you see dynamics play out. And where it's dysfunctional, I spent a lot of time because, coming into Lifeline as a volunteer and then on the board for a brief stint, I had this perception from the outside of what Lifeline would be on the inside. And it wasn't quite that. It was individuals who were really so focused on everything outside of the organisation that they had lost sight of themselves and one another. And that was playing out in a way that wasn't, I guess, assisting individuals to live their best lives as Lifeline staffers. So we looked around for theories, and Coppens drama triangle was one of them, in that you can attract in this sector rescuers. And that's different to boundary setting. Boundary setting is a very, very healthy and evidence-based approach to going into those situations, like a paramedic would. You need to have your boundaries, your disco ball or whatever you call it, your suit of armour. But being able to identify in workplace situations where there is dysfunction, whether you've got the Coppens triangle playing out, is important. You can often find people will come to your organisation. You might find volunteers coming to you because they want to prevent someone else from going through.
Can you just explain, sorry, for the 3 points of the triangle?
So you've got,
just for anyone that doesn't know.
Yes.
Coppens drama triangle. Fascinating.
You've got your rescuers, you've got your victims, and you've got your perpetrators. And quite often, when people have gone through something bad, they don't want anyone else to go through it again. So they take on a rescuer role. They will go into positions and organisations and environments where they can rescue. And that's not something that's functional for them or the organisation or the individual they're helping, because rescuers essentially are trying to prevent something from happening to someone else, but they haven't dealt with their own pain necessarily, or they haven't done the work in terms of being able to heal. And in organizations as well, sometimes victims come in. They're going through that, or they've been through that, and they think the organization or individuals in there can help them. And all of these things, perpetrators as well, and you often hear about people of a certain, if they're criminal or non-criminal, if they've got character flaws or their value sets don't align, they can come in and they can start to cause problems within organizations, depending on the environment that they're in. So really, it's about watching for that in your organization. If you're managing volunteers and if you're managing team members, is making sure that individuals are compatible with one another, that you haven't got victims, perpetrators, or rescuers, according to the Cartman's triangle. Very confronting words to use. But those are Cartman's words, and it does actually help you when you're leading diverse teams in a very complex and emotion-fueled environment. It helps you have tough conversations because you can see what's happening, you can see what's playing out.
I guess why I brought that up, because you mentioned it a while back, and then I reflected and I thought, and I guess why I brought up about caring too much is I feel like I maybe fall into the rescuer role a little bit after I've been through a bad way and wanted to try and help prevent people from doing it, but I didn't sort of set enough boundaries, and I gave more at times, given more than I had. And that, I guess that's why I asked that question. Just to find it fascinating.
And so in your situation, so there you go. So again, I've gone and looked at the negative output or the negative outcomes for the team when a rescuer, perpetrator, or victim comes in. But for those actual individuals, it's burnout. That's the result. It's not being able to sleep at night. It's not being able to rest at the same time as being hypervigilant. So when you've got those two things combined, because you're so motivated by your experience and you haven't got the boundaries in place, or I call it, it's not self-awareness, it's self-compassion. You're not valuing yourself more than you're valuing what it is you're trying to do, and at your own expense. So that's where burnout can happen, because you become hypervigilant. You start to run on fumes. And we were talking about this earlier before the podcast in terms of that can occur in so many different scenarios where, I'm in a situation at the moment where I have such a high level of responsibility for a situation, but very little control over it. And that's something that a lot of first responders find themselves facing as well. And that's where stress occurs. That's where injury occurs. And so being able to be aware of and name what's happening for you right now, and that's where Cartman's comes in. It's being able to say things in ways that people go, that resonates with me. That's what I'm going through. And there's a whole evidence base around it. The beautiful thing I always say is that it's very unlikely that we're going to go through something that has not been experienced before. And that doesn't make it a good thing. It just means that those that have gone through it before, have survived it, are roadmaps for you. So there are a number of people, and for me, detecting which one can help me, it's about aligning with their values. Someone that's values align with mine and have gone through it before, I go, well, I'm not going to push through this on my own. I'm just going to ask for help. So I think that's why, we talk a lot about what you guys are doing at Running for Resilience, and you want to protect that because you'll go ahead and do everything that you're great at. And I'm in the governance cycle now, which is, I know, Ben, we've spoken about that as well. It's all the governance stuff. It's like, it's the boring stuff, but safety first, then you can have fun. So, it's just about trying to make sense of a very complex, a complex environment.
And we probably don't know. I mean, we didn't even introduce Carrie, CEO of Lifeline. It's in the title, but also one of probably our first advisor to R for us. So we just... We should mention that. But
only if we can say congratulations for your nomination.
No, cut that out, Damon. Cut that bit out. But with that triangle, I just find it fascinating. And I like if you're anyone listening, and this is sort of like just a light bulb's going off, and you're sort of catching yourself in that rescuer role. Like if there's a triangle, is the idea you want to be in the middle and not in either role, and that you're just self-sufficient, and that you're not a perpetrator, you're not a victim, and you're not out trying to solve everyone else's problems? Is that kind of the exit out of that triangle? It's not the Eric Cartman triangle, is it? What is it? It's Cartman?
Cartman's
It's not
drama
Cartman?
triangle.
Yeah, well.
You don't want any part of it really. And they use the word perpetrator, but it's really, sometimes a rescuer can come in to an organisation and there isn't a victim to save. So they can't create that healing. So that to create a victim, they become the perpetrator. And it doesn't mean, in a technical or criminal sense. It just means they start to create victims unintentionally or intentionally. It's something that can happen quite subconsciously. As you say, until you name it, it sits in your subconscious. So people don't even realize that's what they're doing. They're very, very helpful, but to their own detriment. So they become the victim. So it's quite interesting how that can play out. But no, you don't want a part of that drama. It's called the drama triangle. And anyone that knows me, I avoid drama. So that's why I know that triangle so well.
There's something coming to my head about this. Well, there's a few things that come to my head. But on the triangle, similar to you, Benny, I probably dived into R4R before I had healed, is the right word. But it became part of my healing mechanism. I would say that I'm on top of it now. I would comfortably say that. But I'm not so sure I would be on top of it without rescuing. Does that make sense?
I don't think in terms of the drama triangle you are rescuing.
Right.
Yeah.
So what's the nuance? Because
it's a complex. So it's more sort of scratching an itch territory than actually genuinely being in touch with, being self-compassionate, being self-aware, and therefore exercising self-care, and then going on and you haven't lost yourself in the process. You've poured your heart and soul into it, no doubt, and you've achieved great things, and that's fueled, I think. And as you say, it's helped you. As you say, you've healed, and I always think you were forced to reimagine your future. And so it's helped you do that. And you've done something so positive with it. And
I probably got over 50% healed before I did it. So then it maybe exaggerated the process.
Yeah.
It's a big part of my healing, mate.
Yeah.
R4R.
I think it's a big
my
part
journey out of sport, huge part of my healing.
I think it's a big part of a lot of people's. I mean, you would see it. There was a saying that stuck with me: when you find your weakness, you find your purpose. And I think, and maybe weakness is the wrong word, but you would see it in your volunteers. They would have some sort of connection to, we say mental health with Lifeline, but obviously any of the things that people call up for, and they know the value it gives. But it also helps build that armor, doesn't it? The experience of the calls helps them to understand all the suffering there is, but also all the strength there is to overcome that suffering, not only to help, but also the people on the other side of the call that they're making the last ditch effort to save themselves. And that takes a lot of strength.
And courage.
And
it's hard not to want to be a part of that, even if it's tough, is to see that in so many different shapes and forms and so many different stories. So that's where that, if you're looking at it as a transaction on the balance sheet, that's where, what it does call or pull on you for, it certainly gives back, because
there's always a cost. But if there's what's the saying? If a person who has a why can find any how, or something like that.
Oh yeah, that's perfect. I love that.
Yeah.
Can I steal that?
Yeah, it's not mine.
Well, we're going to borrow we're not going to, what is it? Not harm a volley to help someone else.
Don't harm someone to help someone. You can have that one. Yeah, but Carpen's drama triangle, just for the record, not mine. Just, something else.
It's not the Carrie's drama triangle.
No.
Clear that up.
You mentioned before
Thank you.
stigma. And I know that Lifeline spends a lot of time or spends a lot of effort trying to change the conversation around mental health. How?
Yeah, that is actually a very good question. I think stigma is one of the biggest barriers to help-seeking behaviour. And we don't just talk about stigma, which is derived from a Greek word around judgment. It's self-stigma. the stigma we put on ourselves. So there's two walls to climb there before. And having this conversation with you guys and being out in the community, people can see that we're humans ourselves. So that removes one barrier. They go, right, I'm going to pick up the phone. There's likely to be a DAG, similar to Carrie, on the phones, and they'll have a chat. It's okay, I can call. That's perfect. But what also blocks them from ringing is that sense that their problem isn't bad enough, or that worse, they're not worth it. Their life isn't valuable enough. They are not seeing in themselves what other people see in them. And that's what we've got to start changing the conversation on. So during COVID, we were talking about self-care, and every day, masks on, my team in the room, I'd say, guys, remember your self-care. Just thinking, not a throwaway comment, but just assuming that we're all experts in it. And one of my team members pulled her mask down and just said, well, what the hell is self-care to you? What are you doing? Because right now, I don't feel like I want to stay in my skin. And thought about it and I thought, gosh, like for me, it's discipline. And that's boring because you talk about spa days and, none of the things, we couldn't do anything other than fight over toilet paper at that time. So unless that was something you were really into, there wasn't really much you could do to look after yourself. And so I thought about it long and hard, and we met with the training team and we said, right, guys, I think the problem here is it's not about self-care. People aren't valuing themselves enough to even think about what it looks like for them. And that's when we started to run self-compassion courses, which was around, as I mentioned earlier, the wolf you feed, and about having self-compassion, self-talk, and what we tell ourselves, and that we're worth it, and how important it is to have that conversation with yourself first. That's what helps break stigma. We offered those courses through all of our media partners, and we booked out 8 weeks, one course a day. We booked out within 24 to 48 hours. Thousands of people came through a 2-hour course that we created just to allow them the space to talk about having compassion for themselves. So the conversation, it's actually a pillar in our strategic plan. We've got 4 pillars, and changing the conversation is one of them. That's how strongly the organisation believes in having that conversation and breaking down stigma.
It starts with ourselves. Yeah.
Why do you think we talk to ourselves in a way that we would never talk to other people? Why is that?
Yeah, interesting. I'm not sure. I know that we, the words we speak out of our mouths, it's like a third or a quarter. I don't know what the stat is. Don't quote me if someone can put it in the comments. But it's one of those things where you talk to yourself, the words we say, 1,000 more words internally that we say than what we say outside. And if we don't focus on making them positive, if we are so critical, I think there's an element of humility. There might be conditioning in there. I think society or culturally, for some people, they don't have it, and you see, there's sort of, it's not arrogance, it's just a sense of self-love and unconditional love for themselves that is just something you want everyone to have. Because it does get tough outside, so you need to make sure you're good with yourself. And the first thing I say to friends, and because I'm very conscious, people say, don't lifeline me. I won't even think about the model, but I have been saying something a lot lately, and I think it's because of burnout. It's because people are feeling stretched and things are happening to people that are outside of their control. I say to them, what matters is that you know what you think about it first, and you know how you feel about it first, because how you feel about that situation is what matters first. If you've been diagnosed with something or you've come across something, how do you feel about it first in terms of your value set? Are you okay with it? You need to do the work to be okay with it, and then you can go out and have conversations with other people. But if you don't do that first, you will take on board everyone's opinions, and that can feel like judgment because it's not in line with how you feel, and it matters. You're sort of adding it to your formula to decide how you feel about yourself. So I think it starts with those very simple practices of just how you talk to yourself and what you let in. And the conversations you have need to be with trusted people you would go to for advice. I was standing at the door to the book fair. I love standing at the door every day when we open, and on day one, we have always around 2,000 people in the queue. So I say, good morning, welcome back, lovely to see you, thank you for waiting. You say it hundreds of times and everyone's smiling at you. You've got let's say there's 2,000 people, you've got 1,999 people smiling back and greeting you and so happy to be there because it's the Lifeline Book Fair and everyone loves the book fair. And this year, one lady came through and she's holding up her gold coin for donation to come in. And she said to me, this is probably going towards your salary, which is excessive, by the way. And then she tried to give it to me.
Thank you.
Give it to me.
And, what was the one comment I took on out of 2,000? It took me about 5 minutes to really work on shaking off that so I could smile at everyone else coming through the door. But man, it hurt. And, there's someone, myself, with all the training, and I've had a lot worse things said to me in my time. But we're human. So it's like that's the word that went in. It took me a while to shake it. So it's just, I think it's just sharing those stories where you realize, gosh, man, we're human. And And so you've got to have a healthy reaction to bad things. And I always say that to people when they're upset. It's a healthy reaction. You're feeling like right now, but that's a healthy reaction. So it's just about what we do next.
Yeah, I think, yeah.
Or interpreting her actions a reflection of her
Yes,
state she's
doing
in.
all the
It's
things.
no reflection of you. It's her obviously a bit bitter and twisted about how her life's panned out.
Yeah, I rang my mum straight away. No,
Yeah.
I didn't, but I felt like ringing my mum.
It's like connecting something you said before about control and responsibility, and also self-care. And one thing that we can always have control over, to an extent, is our thoughts, and then just another layer of that is our actions. And one quote that's always stuck with me is, "Be like the cliff on which the waves continuously crash." And so, no matter what the waves do, the cliff just stays there, and it is constant. And I think when you talk about discipline, it's what are the constants in your life? What can you keep the same regardless of anything that happens? And that you can only kind of learn. I mean, when our twin girls were born, it taught me very fast that you don't have control over things, and what can you control that. What can you control is what you do and how much energy you have apart from them waking you up. But those important, look after yourself first. So if I eat well, if I journal, if I exercise, I'm pretty good and I can handle most things. And if my home life is good, geez, I can almost handle it. Like I'm very hard to get flustered because if I'm looking after myself and my home life is good, gee whiz.
Yep.
The control responsibility thing can go out of whack and it doesn't bother me.
Yeah.
But it's so important because if those things were out of whack, then it would just be such a compounding.
Yeah.
It would just get out of control.
Sort of like an open wound walking around when your safety net's not intact, and that's a risky place to be. And realizing that's when it's time to slow down. Quite often we speed up to try and find a solution quicker. And when a situation's out of your control, and people around you have a different agenda or different focuses or different priorities, and you might be the victim of those decisions that are being made, or you may not have control over what happens next. Yeah, it's bring it closer. It's decide on the next 15 minutes. You don't have to decide what you're going to do in 5 years' time or what renovations. It's just about, right, what am I going to do in the next 5, 10, 15 minutes? And another thing I always say to people that you can control is your behavior. You've just discussed, thoughts drive feelings. Feelings drive behavior, but behavior is a choice. So I always say your thoughts and feelings are valid. They're always valid. Whatever you think or feel about something is valid. It's, that's your thought and your feeling. But how you choose to enact that and your behavior is a choice. So my children have heard it 1,000 times. They're sick of me saying it. But you can be hurt and upset, and it can be genuinely a healthy reaction, but you can still choose a different behavior. You can still choose kindness.
There's strength in that.
Yeah. So it's just, again, controlling what you can control.
I want to talk about, this is my opinion, I think it's probably shared widely, that if Canberra's going to be suicide-free, Lifeline is an integral part of that. I mean, the stats that I read from one of your reports is 35,000 calls, 8,500 hours of support, 4,500 people who are experiencing suicidal thoughts, and then 500 people that were like needed immediate care. That just represents an amount of pain that's out there that needs, like, crisis support should always exist.
Mm.
But another thing that you guys are doing is training, like, I guess, improving the mental health IQ. And a couple of your programs, the Working Mind, the Accidental
Mm.
Counsellor, which I think we need to be more mindful of at R4R because I guess it's a safe space and that can happen. Then also the suicide intervention, the assist program. I think that's such an important load of work that you guys are doing as well.
Yeah, we're trying to get as far upstream as we can. So accidental counsellors actually, up until about 15 years ago, each centre that is Lifeline around the country, there's 42 centres. We have Victoria and Canberra. They ran their own training. And there were some really interesting training tactics back in the day. When that became quite standardised, so when you ring Lifeline now, you'll get the same experience, the same, as I mentioned earlier, the same greeting. And that's for good reason. But when you ring now, you get that really standard response initially, and then obviously an incredible support thereafter. But accidental counsellor is actually when we went to that standardised national program, and that was so that we could uplift our surplus. So where we had more volunteers, we could answer calls in New South Wales and with our overflow. So those stats you mentioned are Canberra-based.
Mm.
So it's almost, now it's closer to 45,000 this year. So that's, almost 10% of the Canberra community needing Lifeline to get through the day or the year. And that's astounding to me. It's good, I guess, that people are reaching out more and more, and you hope that's the case because of a reduction in stigma. But it also means there are many more people in crisis that we know of.
Are they further up the stream? Do you noticing like people are calling earlier in their spiral down, or you don't really know? You don't classify, oh, this person's in a bad way, but they're not right at the bottom, ready to, like, have you noticed anything around that?
Unfortunately not.
You don't
So
know.
that's
Yeah,
what we're seeing. It's people in absolute crisis or imminent risk. So it's unfortunately not, the case. We're hopeful that there are many more people reaching out so that
earlier,
or reaching out at all. As you mentioned earlier, it's just making sure that we're there. It's often something that we reflect on is that every organisation that we work alongside, every organisation in Canberra offering supports, also has to go home at 5 p.m. So we become, I guess, their overflow.
Right as things start getting busy. There's no 5 p.m.
Well,
starts.
maybe that's what. Yeah, and maybe that's also another reason why. In fact, but yeah. So the courses and the training, it's a fantastic investment in yourself. Accidental Counsellor is actually a 2-day course that used to be our 6-month course. We've condensed it down. That's our crisis supported workplace training from 15 years ago. That's now been tinkered with to make sure it's evidence-based and international best practice. But Accidental Counsellor is beautiful. Assist, suicide intervention skills training. That's for really being able to. Interesting fact is that Lifeline crisis supporters are trained to do suicide intervention face-to-face. So, it's not unusual. And I've had situations where you've had to intervene physically and you've got all the skills. It's something that everyone, if they had it, could see a situation. And I was actually driving to the jetty. I was coming to your place to have a Friday afternoon drink. It was 5:15 and I was driving through Charnwood and I had the Lifeline car and a lady pulled up to me at the traffic lights and she was honking. And I wound down my window. I thought, oh my God, did I cut you off? I mean, I'm normally pretty good at indicating. But she said, there's a lady on the bridge back there. And she was frantic. And it was one of the biggest 4-way intersections on the north side. So tried to get back and around. And thank God, by the time I got there, this young girl was still there. And so I pulled up, jumped out of the car. You don't even need to think. And I knew the whole time, I was going to be okay. You're calm, as you say. The training is something anyone can do, and so therefore can be prepared for any situation. Whether it's just to sit in the mud with someone at a barbecue because they've had a bad day, or whether you are driving, in fact, somewhere. So your goal is an ambitious one, but it's possible if everyone. And I remember saying about 10 years ago, if everyone did Lifeline training, I would put my house on the fact that there would be no suicides. And so that was me trying to get people to go further upstream and get into training and give themselves
Can
the
you just
skills.
elaborate more on the stream? Like I find that fascinating because your fellow countryman Jake White used to always talk about the stream, and if someone missed a tackle, he'd go upstream of where the actual root cause was, and it was usually at the set piece boy.
But
It was at the
why?
set piece. But can you just elaborate on this stream metaphor? Because I find that fascinating.
It's really, yes, it's about the genesis. So complex system thinking is everything's sort of interrelated and everything has a consequence, whether it's intended or unintended. And so to try and simplify it, you're trying to go back to the very beginning. And for all of us as individuals, we come with different risks. We come with different biological risks. We come in with different life experiences. So it's not about understanding the individual. It's about understanding basically where someone is in their mental health journey. And someone who is operating, if you look at the mental health continuum, another amazing model, it's, we've talked about the 4 colors. You've got green, yellow, orange, and red. And being able to identify where you are on that continuum. So when you're in the green, you're healthy. When you're in the yellow, you're reactive. So someone who's normally quite funny, yourself, I'd imagine, on a Monday morning. No, Friday afternoon. If you're in the green and you're a joke teller, suddenly you come in to work the next day or you're hanging around your friends the next day and suddenly you're quite sarcastic or it's more displaced sarcasm than corny humor, for example. And so that just tells everyone around you, if they understand the continuum, that you've gone from the green to the yellow. It's a quick check-in. You don't check in at that point, that can decline into the orange, which is injured, and the red, which is ill. And it's a bidirectional model because you can be injured or ill and absolutely be healthy with the right work and the right supports. And sometimes they need to be stronger. And sometimes they can be quite generic. We're talking about energy healing earlier. Can I slip in the crystals? No, too soon. So we were talking about different ways that people reach out and try and stay healthy. And sometimes there are evidence-based approaches, and sometimes there's things that are not evidence-based. But the continuum is a great model to use because it allows you to have that conversation where you are without having to name the emotion.
Where you are in the stream.
Yeah. Yeah. So when you're further upstream, essentially our community, are in the green. And when they start to get down into the yellow, the orange, or even the red, that's where you're sort of seeing the waterfall. That's where that for us. I don't know whether Jake had a waterfall in his analogy. Was that a loss? No.
I don't know.
It'll come back to
Let's get him on the line.
A little bit. What I know you like to talk about is if there's more people in the green, and they're also more aware of the role they can play in somebody else's journey, they've got more energy to help somebody who does fall into the
who's in the orange,
prevent them from getting to the red. If there's more people in the yellow, it just by a factor of scale, there's less people that are able to help. And then so if you push more people and the systems are still there to catch the people that are going to fall, because people will fall to red for whatever reason. But if we've got more people in the green and the systems we've got, we catch more people.
Absolutely. And you're right. People can go from the green straight to the red. You would have gone through a life-changing, event that took you from one place to another. And you found
backpacking in Europe with his mates.
Absolutely in the green and then thrown into the red.
I don't know. We're putting our bodies through a bit of a punish.
Maybe.
But no, because I'm with you. I think it's possible. If everyone has a mental health IQ, I always like to talk about this disaster relief study they did where they just got, you call it amateur counsellors. So obviously your professionals are the ones that have gone through extensive training, and then the amateur would be the equivalent of the 2-day accidental, not that they're amateurs, but for context. And they were just as effective at counselling for the disaster, the natural disaster that the people had gone through. And so if you go, okay, the whole population is 20 mental health IQ points higher, what does that do for scale? And yeah, I agree that that's a massive mental health IQ and training does that. It's a massive indicator.
So going through COVID, we were all in the yellow or the orange. I mean, no matter
just
how
by a factor of restriction. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so going up the stream, you feel like what? Sorry, just a bit more like the practically what's Lifeline doing to get up the stream? Is it trying to create awareness through education so people just can catch themselves earlier up the stream? Is that what you mean by when
think about it? It's as prevention. So preventing it, even from people climbing into the stream. Prevention, just not even getting into that river of suicide, if you want to call it, or the river of mental illness. It's about prevention, even going near the stream. So it's just about trying to keep people out of that journey.
Through education and awareness.
Through education, yeah. So,
But with good habits too, habits that'll help them if they do fall in.
Yeah,
it's almost
absolutely.
like learning to swim in the pool so that if you do get caught in a rip, you can still swim.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Absolutely. And the signs of like, where am I in the stream? Oh, I'm not sleeping, I'm not eating, I'm relying more on alcohol, I've isolated myself, I'm not returning my mates' phone calls. I'm not in the green anymore. It's about having that self-compassion to be self-aware, to stop and think about yourself and go, yeah, I'm no longer up that end of the stream. My behaviors have declined. You rely on your mates. And this is again where the training comes in, or again, stigma. And it's harder for some members of our community to have this conversation. It's a tough conversation. You do the assist training and you have to ask the question of the trainer. So I look you square in the eyes and say, are you having thoughts of suicide? Now, if I asked you to say that straight back to me, it's not.
Are you having thoughts of suicide?
That's amazing. It's not easy to say. It's actually not easy to say. When you're sitting as someone who hasn't done any training, you've not been in that situation before, and you have to look someone square in the eyes and ask that question, it's very confronting.
Yeah.
So the training just prepares you for that. We do role plays. You get put into scenarios.
I only can say because I've known you, 20, long time. But
yeah.
Yes.
We're not that old.
But you're opening the door to a conversation that could be quite heavy.
Yes. The answer could be yes. And then what? Yeah. And that's where, again, people might not ask the question. My gran used to say when she was in the retirement village, she goes, I don't ask anyone how they are anymore because I'm afraid they'll tell me. This is for a different reason. You want to ask the question, but what if the answer is yes? And that's when I liken it to a heart attack. So I say to people, right, take out the mental, take out the emotional. You're sitting with someone and they suddenly clutch at their chest, they fall to the floor, their life is at risk. What are you going to do? What would you do? CPR, call an ambulance. And it's exactly the same with someone who is sitting with a life-threatening situation and it's between their ears. It's about saying, I will sit with you, I'll stay with you. That's just CPR. I'm not going to leave your side, but I need to bring in reinforcements. I need to bring in help. Do you mind if we sit and ring Lifeline together? Or I'm going to ring an ambulance and I'll stay with you the entire time. So our first responders are very, very compassionate and incredibly well-trained individuals to be able to manage those situations with empathy as well.
So I don't know if I've got so many. There's a lot I want to ask you, Carrie. The one, sorry if I cut you off with the story when you were going to the person at the bridge, but can you also, just the listeners, tell the story about the black spots that you guys have helped?
The hotspots.
The hotspots, sorry, that you've been able to shine light. So I think I cut you off from that first story. And then also the hotspot story.
So at that time, yes, the police, my partner was in the car, he rang 000. The police got there. And
what a flying doors moment.
She was fine. At that time. The hotspots, that's essentially a hotspot. A suicide hotspot is a term we use for a well-known place where people will go to attempt suicide, to end their life. And we very recently, working with the NCA, were able to secure a location, and identify a location as a hotspot in Canberra. And the NCA, the team in place, they have not hesitated to do everything they needed to do to put up signage. We walked the area from every angle, and they looked at every possible place they could put the right messaging. So stenciled onto the floor, signposts on the road, on the bridges, on the park fences, on the picnic benches. They have made no attempts to block that messaging, and it's been something that we have seen, because if you ring the number from a hotspot, it comes straight to the front of the queue for Lifeline. So it'll identify to our crisis supporter that this is a live hotspot call. And so immediately there's another protocol for that. And we've had that number, that location activated twice since the hotspot was made active, and we've had no incidents. So there's a really positive news story. It's and a wonderful outcome for our community. It's just that person at that moment in time taking a pause and something saying, I need to reach out.
And not being too hard to reach. Like,
Yeah.
you don't have to reach, just there, and they get all the help they need. That's amazing.
I mean, to bring it back full circle, kind of before we ask you one final question, is it can be a circuit breaker, can't it? Those little signs that people see, they'll blinkers on. Nothing else in their life is going right, and they only see one avenue, and all it can take is just seeing a sign that just flicks the thought one way or the other, and then they can call, and then hopefully it's a trajectory out of that despair. That we spoke about with the story of Josh and what he shared at the Lifeline Gala. Carrie, the 2 questions. I always do this. The work Lifeline does is incredible. Seriously, it's a testament to you, the volunteers, everyone involved, the supporters, the people that go to the book fair, everyone. It's needed. Is there anywhere we can send people, or how can R4R help with Lifeline?
Oh, I think it's, you've just mentioned myself, the volunteers, so many of our connections assist. I mean, Ben and I catch up for whether I'm going through a chai latte stage or a decaf coffee stage.
Turmeric latte.
Turmeric. Do you drink turmeric lattes?
Oh, black all the way.
Oh, so I'm back on those. But it's really just about as individuals in the space creating the space and it's so wonderful to be able to walk in. And I know, Ben, I've done this. I've walked in and gone, oh my goodness, this happened to me this morning. And I derailed the whole meeting because I just need to vent. And it's a safe space. So how can you help? You already are. It gives our organisation and our team members who participate in the walks and the runs so much pride in doing that. You are right at the coalface, rather. You are there doing the thing, like grassroots, that you're having that conversation. You're opening the door. You're creating connection. You're preventing isolation. It's everything we admire. It's sometimes difficult when you're sitting in a phone room in a building far away and you don't have a face or a name. So we sort of live vicariously through you guys. I think it's just about helping us with that barrier around, is Lifeline for me? Should I call?
Yes.
Yeah. And having that conversation and letting everyone know that Lifeline is for them and knowing the number.
And the last question, and it is the last question, who would you want to see on the R4R podcast, whether we interview them or whether you interview them?
Wow. Gosh.
Put it out in the universe and hopefully it happens.
Yeah, look, there are so many people that inspire me. I think you should definitely talk to Wayne Phillips from Emergency Services ACT.
Okay.
He heads it up, and his approach, the culture he creates, his dedication and commitment, his sense of humour. If nothing else, just let him tell jokes for an hour. That's here in Canberra. There are just so many incredible people. You would have met so many incredible people. It's, for me, it's that ability to go through something yourself and then turn around and turn it into something positive. So I'm sitting with you. I'd like to talk to you. Like I said, I have a million questions for you. Ben, I think I chew your ears off all the time. It's nice that we share the same building now. So that's awesome. Look, there's the big names, and I've had the privilege of meeting so many incredible people as well. I met Nelson Mandela on my birthday, so I always throw that out there because that Madiba. That was these things, are game changers. I think if I could have a conversation, an open and honest conversation with anyone, it would be absolutely anyone, because everyone has a story. Don't you find that? You sit down and you just
Are you going for a career in politics after this?
No.
The diplomatic answer.
Oh, no. That's the magic though.
Yeah,
like
I get it.
sat down to have a conversation with you guys. We've been joking outside about all sorts of things, and you open with your experience and your journey, and I'm like, that there's so much in that. I hope you know that. Like there's so much value in that. There's strength. There's so much in that. So you scratch.
What's good is it feels normal for me, and I think that's a testament to you, to Benny, but also the community that R4R is. It doesn't feel brave anymore. It feels normal. And I hope that other people feel that way too.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And everyone's got a story.
Everyone.
Yeah.
Carrie, thank you. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. That was a good chat.
Yeah. That's what I mean. The face one. Yeah.
Oh,
I'm
wow.
pretty sure that's how long.